And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, happy Monday, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. We have so much to get to today. Ben, first off, how are you? You good?
I can't believe how sunburnt Christian looks.
That was going to be
to a crisp.
The lead of the show. Christian is back from Cancun, Mexico.
And he is fried.
He looks relaxed.
Weird to pick a white sweatshirt when your face is bright pink.
Got to show off the contrast, really.
Let people know.
What I want to know what the highlight of the trip was, both activity and culinary-wise.
I'll start off with the food. I mean, it was an all-inclusive resort, so the food wasn't spectacular. It was edible. It didn't make me sick, so that was good.
Yeah.
That's all I can really ask for.
That's a low baseline.
Yeah, there wasn't anything that really blew me away, but it was cool. It was cool.
Last time, I'm not even a foodie. Last time I went to Mexico, we had a really good food experience. But what about activity-wise?
I was telling you a little bit off air. We did a cool little catamaran. There's an island off the coast of Cancun. It's not super far, but they had like a catamaran ride to the island, and that was really cool. That was fun. It was like an hour-long ride on the boat.
Was it rough?
No, it was really nice. Great weather. Just barely missed a hurricane, so that was nice. Sunshine all the time. The catamaran had like 30 people on it, and we were all having a great time.
You were sweating that weather report for a couple of weeks, huh?
I really was, and even like Saturday, we left Sunday. Saturday, I was looking at the forecast, and it said it was going to be cloudy like every day, and I was like, oh, dang it. But I got there, and it rained for maybe 20 minutes, and that was about it.
Awesome. Well, good to have you back.
Yeah, welcome back.
Happy to be back.
Thanks to Jake Hatch, who filled in all last week. Appreciate Hatch. And, of course, when we were talking about that this morning, and I was thinking Hatch, he was like, well, I've got a cruise coming up, so... And that's the great part. I've talked about this before, but in, producing, hosting, whatever, you can't just put the out-of-office reply on the email and, like your job... Not that people who do that, I guess, would put their job on pause, but we can't just, bounce.
The show goes on.
Like somebody has to fill in for you, and that specific somebody has to have specific experience and know-how that isn't necessarily just someone can step in.
Right.
And so it can be tricky. So in my career, and I think most people around here are the same way, I do whatever I can to help somebody because I am going to need help. Am going to need that help at some point along the way. So, anywho. Ben, where do you want to start out? Because there's two quite bad things that we could lead with, or we could lead with the positive. What kind of mood are you in on a Monday?
We need to give BYU their flowers.
Well, yeah, because BYU trounced UCF.
As they should have.
Absolutely, as they should have.
Kind of what we talked about a lot last week, and then we were looking at the Vegas betting odds for both Utah and BYU, and I think my quick summation was, why aren't these flipped? Why is Utah favored on the road?
And why speculated is BYU about injuries.
Right. And they were fine, and they absolutely cooked Central Florida, which is what good teams do. And BYU's not just a good team. They're a really, really good team. It's a really high-level team that is clicking on all cylinders. And not to put the cart before the horse, but I bet you they have another gear that they haven't even tapped into. Namely, what Jake Retzloff can do with his legs. And, you saw it with the first touchdown, the 27-yard or 29-yard scramble, whatever it was, for the touchdown. You get into a Big 12 title game, which is where BYU is headed, and they're going to get there, and they're going to get there easily. You get there, and you need to win a game with your legs or put a whole drive together with your legs or make 3 big plays. He can do it, and the nice thing is they haven't had to put him in harm's way all that much to do it. He's picked his spots very wisely. He has helped in the run game, but he has not been the run game. He continues to get better throwing the ball. The defense is awesome. They got the Central Florida defensive coordinator fired today. That's not on BYU. That's on Central Florida. But it's just they are playing at an unbelievably high level, and the rest of the schedule is cake. and I know we've got 2 weeks until the rivalry game, BYU is going to crush Utah. This game's not going to be close. This is going to be lopsided and ugly. And yes, it's at Rice-Eccles Stadium. BYU doesn't care where they're playing right now. They're destroying everybody.
Shout out to my guy Gordon Monson who wrote about this. But there is one stat, one kind of team stat that tells the entire story of this game, which I think is a really good sign for a lot of the stuff you're talking about. BYU had the ball for 40 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yep.
UCF had the ball for 19 minutes and 32 seconds. BYU ran over that team. I mean, totally ran them over.
Yeah, it was
physically dominant, ran them over. The passing game was a happy bonus.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at total attempts passing the ball, BYU, Ben, 24. 3 fewer, by the way, than UCF with 27.
Who has a quarterback who can't throw.
And who had the ball for 19 and a half minutes.
Yep.
So that's absolutely hilarious. Rushing attempts, Ben, 48.
Yeah.
48. They held the ball the whole game.
Yep.
They ran him over, and then they made some savvy pass plays because UCF had no idea what to do, because when you're getting ragdolled, the answers are few, which is something that the University of Utah built their football program on and have forgotten, but we will get to them a little bit later. I mean, and you know what I love about it? Sean White, Ben, snowboard,
Flying Tomato.
Which was he first? Snowboard, right?
Yeah, I think he was both. Yeah, but yeah. Better snowboard.
Wait, this is my point, though. So started snowboarding and then was like, well, you moron skateboarders, I could pick up the sport tomorrow and just be better than you. And then lo and behold, it's like, oh, yeah, well, he did that.
Right.
BYU did to UCF what they tried to do to teams. BYU came in and said, all right, well, you want to run the ball, huh? Well, it's tough to run it when you don't have the ball. So we're gonna bully you and win it going away. This wasn't their best win, if we want to get into language, but this was their most impressive win.
Yeah, this wasn't the best opponent they've beaten, certainly.
But the way that they did it was the most impressive, I think.
Yes, and you can say, well, they blew out Kansas State, and Kansas State's way better. Kansas State had those first 2 drives that came up empty that were kind of on Kansas State.
BYU didn't play perfectly against Kansas State, and they won anyway.
Yeah, this was just lopsided. I mean, this honestly felt like a non-conference game against a lower-level opponent where you just go in, you pay them to beat them up, as a warm-up for the rest of the year.
They looked better than they did against Wyoming.
Yes, they did. Yeah, they're getting better.
This looked better.
BYU's getting better every week.
And to throw a run game in there, oh, man, that everything is coming together for BYU at the right time, and they're already undefeated, which is pretty wild.
And now they get into the easiest stretch of their schedule. It's crazy. Yeah, BYU's cooking. BYU is going to be the 5th-ranked team in the country at the end of the regular season going into the Big 12 championship game, to the point where I think there's a real chance BYU's going to the college football playoff, win or lose in the Big 12 title game.
I agree with that.
The same way TCU made the college football playoff after losing to Kansas State in the Big 12 title game because they were undefeated through the regular season. I mean, I think that's where BYU's headed. BYU's, by all accounts, barring what we all know you can't control, which are injuries, BYU should be playoff bound, and they should get there with a lot of momentum. I mean, they are just playing better and better and better every week, and it's extraordinarily impressive.
They should host a game. I mean, should.
Well, they should get a bye.
But should is too strong a word. Yeah, and then they would host. Would they host a semifinal game? They would not.
I guess it depends on where you finish, right? The top 4 teams get byes.
Right. I'm trying to think
and then,
of the bracket
in
my mind.
Yes.
Then you would host. You would host a game.
Yeah.
Hosting a playoff game, a second-round playoff game at Lavelle Edwards Stadium would be...
Oh, it would be...
It would be wild.
It would be the greatest college football game we've ever played in our state.
It would, yeah.
Most important. There have been great college football games.
Well,
That's
this has
not what
never
I'm
existed before, so that's
Yeah, right.
not
I mean,
entirely
it would be
comparable.
the biggest, but that's where we're headed.
Yeah.
We're headed to the biggest college football game ever being played in our state.
But there's a lot of football to
Stadium.
be played, and you're going to have to beat a good team in the Big 12 title game. So
You are. To host, yes. To host.
right.
And as long as you don't get absolutely trounced in the Big 12 title game, which BYU is going to be favored, I think, regardless of who they play.
I don't know. They were somehow not favored against
Yeah, right. Well,
UCF.
okay, the morons there.
Gamblers
There are times when I think I don't
love the Cougs.
I don't gamble. I certainly don't bet on sports. And there are times when I'm like, why didn't I not bet my entire life savings on these
By
games?
the way, just real quick, time stamp this into your brain to people listening. Whenever you hear somebody go, well, those guys in Vegas just know what they're talking about,
Yep.
realize that not really. Nobody ever highlights the brutal misses. Everybody only highlights the one that they predicted the score somewhat close, which, again, is not the point.
Right.
So it's not even a criticism on them because it's not what they're trying to do.
No, it's a coincidence.
It's a coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, BYU deserves all the flowers. I mean, they are just playing as well as I've seen any local college football team play in my lifetime.
Well,
In our state.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I guess it's up there. It's in the
If
conversation.
you want to say 04 Utah, maybe. But I'm talking about in my lifetime. I think this is as good as we've seen.
Well, I've been
seen
alive for a long time. The '96 BYU team was awesome. 04 Utah. I think 04 Utah is better than 08 Utah.
They were certainly more dominant.
I mean, we could talk those Rose Bowl teams, but those weren't undefeated. You
No.
could make an argument maybe opposition was a little better, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm hands down saying this is the best I've seen a team play. That 04 team was just mauling.
It was.
It was just
That was a stacked
mauling
team and had a
teams.
better quarterback.
And Urban Meyer was electric and all that. But anyway, let's not get lost in those weeds because it's going well for BYU. No, I'm sure the coaching staff down there is saying, don't count your chickens.
Yeah, right.
I guarantee the message for 2 weeks from that building is anything can happen in a rivalry game. Anything could happen. We've got to stay focused because anything could happen. Utah is still a really good team, on and on. You can hear it. And that has to be their message because they could lose to Utah. They could lose to anybody. It's the point of being in a league where you have to play a good team every week. You could lose to any of these
That's why
teams.
you play the games.
Yeah. I mean, UCF is still better than most of the Mountain West Conference when they were back in a league.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you still have to play good teams every week. Now, you could make an argument, is Utah a good team? And again,
Let's get to it.
we'll get there. But I think BYU has more than proven that they're a really good team.
Yep. They're good everywhere. They're good on special teams. And that's not where I'm starting. It's not like that's their best thing. But there's not that one
What about
spot.
punting? Ajay. Shout out to Ajay.
But yeah,
Situational punting.
they've got a good passing game.
Uh-huh.
Looks like the running game is starting to develop fully. And like I said, I think there's another aspect of it with Jake Retzloff that they've not had to rely on, but they could.
They've got a smart quarterback who is capable of making difficult throws.
They have, yes, absolutely.
And coming through in the crunch time.
They
That's a thing.
have a lot of talent at wide receiver.
Looks like they have two running backs.
They have a good offensive line.
The line might be the story of BYU, honestly. If we want to talk improvement, and Retzloff. Are we saying Retzloff or
Retzloff.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Retzloff probably wins the trophy in the improvement category, and shout out to him. But for the offensive line to go from what it was last year, which was a disaster, to lose a top draft pick
Yep, and Connor Pay. Oh, you're talking about
last year from
yeah.
last year's team,
Yeah.
Kingsley. To lose Kingsley
Yeah.
and then come out and be capable of dominating a game like that is really impressive.
And lose Connor Pay, who a lot of people think was probably your most well-respected, at least, offensive lineman going into the season. A lot of experience. And they're hoping to get him back against Utah. I think we'll have to catch up with Mitch Harper and see where they are. But yeah, no. And here's the nice thing about their offense, because we know the defense has also been dominant. They can score quick. They can hold the ball for 40 minutes in a game. But if they need a drive late against Oklahoma State with 1 minute and 37 seconds left,
got it.
They'll march down the field. If Central Florida cuts it to a one-score lead at halftime with 1.5 minutes left, they can rush down the field and pump it back up to, 24-10 at half, and all of a sudden, game's over. Any momentum that Central Florida thought they had is gone. So they're explosive, but they're also methodical. The play calling is spot on. Again, A-Rod seems to have total control and total understanding of who all the players are on the offensive side of the ball. And then Jay Hill is a head coach in waiting wherever he wants, not wherever he wants a job, but he's a head coach in waiting. Whenever he wants to leave, there will be an opportunity for him. And he's just got that defense playing as well as I've seen BYU defenses play in a long time.
Okay, so BYU was certainly the good.
Yeah.
Disaster at Utah.
It's one of the worst losses I've seen Utah have. And I know this all sounds very hyperbolic right now.
Not. Houston's
saying
awful.
BYU's about to host the biggest game we've ever had in our state, and then Utah lost one of the worst games I've seen them lose. Yeah, Houston's awful. Houston was the last place team in our Big Pac power poll, to the point they were so bad that Vegas thought a Utah team that can't score at all would win by more than 3 points, which is, you get the 3 points at home, and then they had Utah winning by 4.5. I mean, that's a touchdown difference. And Utah was awful.
And new offensive coordinator doesn't know what team he's coaching. He doesn't. 37 pass attempts between two quarterbacks, 26 rush attempts for 90 yards. And I got it that the run game wasn't electric.
Wasn't good, no.
But your quarterback play isn't electric. So, and your receiving game isn't electric. You're buying into Keithy and Singer are our playmakers. We've got to get the ball in the hands of our playmakers. Well, it's not working. And you look at their numbers on paper, and Keithy had the touchdown. And I'm not harshing. He's talented, and you've got to get him the ball too. I'm not saying ignore that, but how do they? They got to run the ball. They got to do it. And is Bernard a guy or not? And your guy, Glover, looked really good in his 4 carries. So lean into that and take the pressure off whatever guy you have throwing the football. Good gravy. I don't know. I don't want to go too far.
Whit doesn't talk today because it's a bye week. Obviously, I would be fascinated to have heard what he would have said. Do we know exactly what happened with going to Brandon Rose? Because at one point, Isaac Wilson was hurt, and then at another point, it was, they benched him. Utah is at a point where...
We're back to talking about is he hurt or not.
Yeah, right. Utah's at a point, and this is scary. The coaches don't know what's wrong because they don't know how to fix it. And if they do know what's wrong, they either don't have the talent to fix it or don't have the players. Period. I don't know if they know what's wrong. I don't know if they can even identify what the problem is. To your point, you fire Andy Ludwig. You make a change at quarterback. Yeah. You're not running the football. You can't get the defense to play well in the right spots. The offensive line's atrocious. It's just they can't. It's like they're doing an engine diagnostic and they can't figure out why, your car's making a clicking noise every time you put it in reverse. They can't figure out what's going on here because they have no idea where to start on fixing it. Because changing Andy Ludwig didn't do anything. It's not going to do anything. We knew it wouldn't do anything. We thought maybe you get a new voice in there. Maybe that helps a little. But the talent's bad. Okay. Is it from Whit? Let's play that. Kyle Whittingham on why they went to Brandon Rose.
Yeah, trying to get a spark, trying to create something. We'd only scored the 1 touchdown and just didn't seem to be gaining any momentum offensively. So we figured it was time to give Brandon an opportunity. He came in and he scored 1 touchdown as well. So we got 1 touchdown each of those guys at QB. But that was the reason. It's just to try to generate a spark.
It's a weird time to do it. I would say halftime when Cam Rising couldn't throw the forward pass.
Isaac Wilson or Cam?
No, I'm talking about
Cam.
2 games
Yeah,
ago.
okay.
I'm talking about Cam.
Yeah.
At halftime when he couldn't throw a forward pass would have been a pretty terrific time to do it. But then at halftime in a game that you can win, you go to the guy that you've been actively trying not to play for years now? That was the time?
Yep.
When it was 7-7? Ben, why are they constantly game planning like they're down 14, 18, 21 points?
Yep.
Why is that the game plan? That doesn't make any sense.
Again, they don't know what's wrong.
When you bench your quarterback is when your quarterback has 3 interceptions and you're down by 21 at half.
Right. You make the switch. Especially,
That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
It's really, we can just keep going back further of when these problems started. But, like, I remember I was sitting in this chair and you were sitting there, and we learned that Isaac Wilson was going to be the backup quarterback. Like, and the first thought was, okay, it's a true freshman who's going to have to play because Cam's going to miss a couple of games. At least Cam's going to miss 2 games. Now we ended up missing whatever, it's going to be 8 games. But he's going to have to be ready to play. That was the first diagnosis. And second was, oh, Brandon Rose must be really bad. Oh, Brandon Rose hasn't grown at all in 3 years that he's been at Utah because he lost the job to Isaac Wilson, who's undersized and has a real lack of experience. So what's been going on at quarterback there? What's the story with Brandon Rose? Why is Brandon Rose not getting better? Why is Utah in this pickle right now? What's the problem? You can go look at the Quentin Jackson leaving and not feeling like he had an opportunity to shine at Utah or not getting paid enough. You can go back and start pulling on all these strings and see what unravels the sweater that you've got. But there were a lot of problems laid out for Utah really early on, and they've developed so poorly now. All of them have gone wrong that Utah doesn't know where to pick it up. Utah doesn't know how to stop the bleeding. Because, Jake, Houston was one of the worst teams in all of college football going into this game. And Utah scored early. Everyone thought, okay, that's what Utah needed. They needed they make it easy on the defense. Finally. And then it just got progressively worse. Progressively worse. Isaac Wilson was missing open passes, just missing guys by 3 and 4 yards on what should be easy first downs. Money Parks gets hurt. They're not running the ball. It's a disaster. This is a disastrous season from Utah. And I know you say, oh, well, they're 4-4. They're going to be 4-8 at the end of the year. This team's not going to win another game.
Well, they're not going to be favored, maybe against UCF, but at that point they'll have lost 7 in a row.
And they're on the road. They just lost to Houston. And they just gave up. Remember, Houston was the worst offensive team
in the country.
In the country.
Scoring offense. Yeah. And they gave up 17, which is actually 4 above their season average.
They had 230 rushing yards on the ground. That's not
good.
Oh, well, we had a corner fall down and a receiver burned us for a big play. Or they had a trick play that went wild, or they had a kick return for a touchdown. No. They just ran the ball on Utah. They said, oh, this is your identity. This is your strength. Running defense. This is what you've always been able to do to people. Watch this. We're just going to run over you. And they did.
Yeah, they did.
They just ran over Utah.
Only threw it 13 times.
Yep. Yeah, 61 passing yards. 230 yards on the ground.
Bad loss.
It's just a horrendous loss.
Bad loss. And it looks like an uphill battle against BYU. Because BYU's defense is really good, so they're not going to score. I mean, they scored 14 against Houston. Like, how many are they going to score against a defense that's not infallible, mind you, but really good?
Utah's next 3 teams are BYU, Colorado, Iowa State. They're all ranked. 2 of them are ranked in the top 11.
Yeah, right.
And Colorado's explosive. Like, Colorado's going to score 35 points because they score 35 points. And you're at Colorado. That's going to be the biggest blowout loss Utah has.
Yeah.
And then the last game of the season, you've lost 7 in a row. You're going into Central Florida. These guys aren't coming back.
Normally,
these guys don't care.
I'd say Utah's just going to ragdoll Colorado and hold the ball the whole game, but that doesn't appear to be the strategy.
Oh, Utah might have the ball for 45 minutes if they let the other team just score every time.
Yeah, well, you can't be ineffective and hold the ball. Like, you can't hold the ball for 45 minutes.
If you can't move it, period. Yeah.
Like, if you hold the ball for 45 minutes, you're going to score 28 points automatically.
What was the time of possession against Houston?
It was almost even, slight edge to Houston.
Okay.
But the game was 17-14.
Yep. That was hideous.
31 minutes for the Cougs, 29 minutes for the Utes.
12 first downs.
It was so...
5 of 17 again on 3rd and 4th down.
Terrible.
I mean, you held Houston to 4 of 19 on 3rd and 4th down. 61 passing yards. You won the turnover battle. That's the thing. Like, all these numbers you look at probably favor Utah. Utah had more total yards. Utah was a better passing team. Utah won the turnover battle. Other than time of possession, but that should have been fine.
Again, you can harp on turnover.
Oh, excuse me. Utah did not lose it. Utah lost the turnover battle 2-1. excuse me, including Brandon Rose's fatal interception at the end of the game.
Whoops. I mean, I don't know. I don't get why then. It's not like I'm a believer all the time in sticking with a guy, but like, why then? That just doesn't make any sense.
Why would you name a true freshman your
As
backup,
Well,
and
nepotism.
then go away from him at any point?
Yeah, right. And I remember when I asked Bartle, I was like, they're going to ruin him. Like, are they ruining him already? And it's like, maybe. They might be.
And I don't want to put the cart before the horse because we've got a lot of time to talk about this, but they've already laid out that they don't know what's going to happen next year.
Well, yeah.
Because you're going to have to bring in somebody to compete with Isaac Wilson for the job at least, meaning you're going into the year not knowing what your quarterback situation looks like. And when has that ever been good for Utah?
Yeah. No, right.
It's like this is good. This bleeding does not stop because you close the season against Central Florida 5 weeks from now.
Well, that's what everybody assumed about last year.
Right.
But
right.
Yeah, it's bad. It's not looking. I mean, BYU's rolling. So I mean, it's gonna be cool to have 2 weeks to lead up to the rivalry. But I don't know how much Ute fans are gonna enjoy it.
Yeah.
I much more liked 2007, 8, 9, and 10 when both teams were good.
Yeah.
That was way better.
Yep.
All right, stay tuned. More Jake and Ben coming up next. Top 3 stories, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
Last night shouldn't just be the blueprint in the second half of what you want this team to be, JJ. This needs to be the blueprint all year. Play phenomenal, develop your guys, and lose.
Exactly. Last night was perfect.
It was awesome.
It was the perfect start to the season because everything you want to see out of this team is exactly what you got. Rookies getting minutes, young players getting developmental minutes, young guys learning, somebody like Lowry giving you an all-star performance, someone like Walker giving you hope for his future. There's so many things that you saw last night. You're like, yeah, that was great. And then at the end of the game, made it interesting. It was entertaining. It was fun. They come up short. This is how it's going to go all season long.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day. This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Time for the top 3 stories of the day. KSLSports.com, brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers. 2 locations, one on Winchester Street across from Fashion Place Mall, the other at Traverse Mountain in Lehigh. Just pointing out, Ben, holidays, not that far away.
We are here.
Like,
I mean, it's Halloween week. If you've been to any store, all the Halloween stuff's put away. Christmas is out.
dude, if you're rolling by Winchester Street, just duck into J. Brooks.
It's time.
Take care of business.
Yep.
All right. Well, where are we starting today?
Number 1, the Jazz are at the Mavericks tonight.
Jazz got absolutely blown off the floor by the Warriors in their last game. I thought Golden State looked really impressive. But the Jazz are in rough shape, and when Lowry has bad nights, they do not have a chance to win. And Lowry had a really bad night.
So Game 1 and Game 2 with the Jazz were both losses. In Game 1, there were some minor exceptions, but I thought most everybody played pretty well.
Yeah.
And they played pretty hard. In Game 2, I doing the post game, you know, we don't shy away from the negative necessarily. We're not out to insult anybody on the post game, but we're not afraid to talk about when somebody isn't playing all that well. But we like to mix in the positives too, of course. What was the positive?
Yeah. You know, honestly,
there wasn't anybody that played well. There wasn't really
Drew Eubanks was +3.
They didn't guard well.
No, they didn't do anything well.
I don't want to say they didn't play hard because I didn't get the sense they were dogging it by any means, but it was not good.
No, they lost by 41 points at home.
Will
Hardy on Saturday made them rewatch the whole game start to back.
Yeah.
Not broken up in clips, not, hey, here's 5 things here that we should work on. Just watch the whole game to your point of like, do you see this? Do you see? And you do that because you're looking at effort, right?
Uh-huh.
Like after the game, Will was like, I actually thought a lot of it was we just didn't make shots. And they didn't. They really did not make shots. Lowry was 4 of 17.
Make or miss league, Ben.
Taylor Hendricks was 0 of 6. And I actually thought Taylor Hendricks might have been one of the better players the Jazz had in that game, and he couldn't hit anything. Walker was fine, only played 20 minutes. I'm really curious what's kind of going on with Walker's minutes. I'll be watching that tonight. Colin Sexton, who's usually extremely reliable, was 4 of 13. And Keontae George started out well, 2 of 2 from the three-point line, and then finished 4 of 12. So he shot 2 of 10 the rest of the way. Some of them were in garbage time, but he shot poorly to begin the year. So, yeah, it was just a really bad performance.
And on the other side of the ball, there's one thing that Buddy Hield can do. There is one reason that he is in the NBA, Ben, and one reason alone. And I'll give you some clues. It ain't defense.
Yep.
Certainly ain't ball handling.
Yeah, it's not playmaking.
It's not playmaking.
Yeah.
It is shooting.
He's a pure shooter.
That's it.
Yep.
He played 20 minutes and had 27 points.
Yeah, he was great. It's as well as I've ever seen him play.
That is almost as egregious as Manu Ginobili beating everybody with his left hand because he could never go right. He never went right, ever. He had no business being an NBA player because he was so left-hand dominant.
Yeah.
And somehow he made it work through, I don't know what, magic. Yeah. But how does Buddy Hield score 27 points in 20 minutes and go 7 of 9 from 3? Because nobody's in the same county as that dude. That's like basic stuff. Like,
Will Hardy.
Help the helper and all that stuff. But you know what you don't do? Leave that guy.
Will has talked a lot about sometimes you need to have pick-up hoops mentality, which is when a guy is hot, you have to guard him differently. And I know we went in with a game plan and we were going to execute X, Y, and Z, but when a guy is on a heater, you have to change that. And Will knows it.
No, I know
the
he
players
does,
aren't picking it up.
But see, you're letting it off the hook.
Okay.
That's true about Royce O'Neal. No offense to Royce.
Right.
That's true about a three-point shooter that shoots 35%.
Yeah. Keontae George. When Keontae gets hot, guard him differently.
That's true about those players.
Yeah.
That's not true about
because that's
Kyle
the only thing on the
Korver. That's
scouting
not
report.
true about Ray Allen. That's
Right.
not true about all. I mean, let's go through. Kyle Korver is a great example because he didn't do much else that kept him in the NBA either, other than being 6'6" and shooting like that, right? I mean, you don't leave Buddy Hield ever. I don't even care if he's having a bad game.
Yeah.
You're in that guy's business the whole game because he's only there for one reason, and he will never, and I mean it, beat you off the dribble.
Right.
Like, the chances of that happening are extremely low. You have to way overplay him to get beat off the dribble. That's basic scouting stuff, and the frightening part about that is that was on the scouting. There was one thing that
one
he's on the
strength. He has 10 weaknesses. He has one strength, and it's one word. It just says shooter.
So it's not like they weren't informed before they got into the game.
Right.
That's the alarming part.
Yeah.
And that's either confusion or I don't know. I like every other word I want to use is so insulting. I don't want to. Let's go with confusion.
Yeah.
That's a little alarming. And by the way, that's how you lose 60 games in an NBA season and stuff like that.
Yep. And that is, again, we're 2 games in. Things changed. Jazz were 2-7 to open the year last year and then went on a 19-game run where they won 15 games. This is why the Jazz are bad. This is why we said 25 or fewer.
You re-pointed out to all of us that Buddy Hield was in the playoffs last year, and nobody had any idea.
Yeah.
Do you know why?
Because they put one guy on him, and it rendered him useless.
Rendered him unplayable. Not just useless, but unplayable.
Right.
Like, this guy's so bad at everything else. We can't play Cantor.
Yeah.
Can't play Hield.
Yeah.
So I think that's a little alarming. I didn't mean to get too negative. But Luka, this different game with Dallas, he's going to dribble the ball the whole game, so you might as well throw the whole team at him.
Well, this is the masterpiece of
they lost
last
by
year. They lost
50
by 50
or whatever.
So we'll see.
We'll see how
Dallas
it goes.
is coming off of a bad loss to Phoenix as well, so they're going to be looking to get back to their winning ways. So we'll see. See what happens tonight.
Gap Buddy Hield. He might get you.
You and Coach LaComb at 5:30?
Yeah, we got a little early.
Yeah.
I like that. And Coach will be on at 11 coming up top of the hour. All right, what's next?
Number 2, kickoff time and TV info announced for BYU at Utah.
8:15? A late night game. Oh, good. If you're a Utah fan on the East Coast, you don't have to watch it. You can go to bed.
It's BYU Utah.
I'm with you.
It's disappointing to say the least.
We talked about it last week, how there was a chance this could have been Big Noon Saturday, and it could have either been the 10 a.m. slot or it could have been the 5 o'clock slot, and they said, ooh, gross. We don't want that game. We don't want to put that game on TV because BYU is going to be favored by, the line's not going to be very big because it's a rivalry game and it's at Utah, but, I'm going to set my line at 17.5 points for BYU. This is going to be a horrible game.
The Wizard's going to favor Utah?
Yeah, it's going to be a 2.5 point BYU
the
game.
The Wizard hates BYU.
But it's going to be an ugly game, and now it's late, 8:15.
What channel's it going to be on? I didn't see the release.
ESPN.
It's going to be on the mouse at 8:15.
Yep.
I would think that the rivalry itself would get a better slot than that. And you know what? BYU being undefeated should be able to carry that game. Why are they putting it in the middle of the night? That makes no sense.
Let me pull up what else is being played. Oh, I'm on NBA. Let me pull up the schedule coming up for week. What is that? Technically week 11.
Yeah, I've got the Big 12 schedule in front of me, or the top 25 schedule, but they haven't filled in the TV stuff.
So Georgia Ole Miss is going to be a high-profile game.
Alabama LSU.
Man, yeah. Those are the two big games. It's kind of a weak schedule. That's the problem. It's just kind of a weak schedule.
Oklahoma,
so you would hope,
Missouri.
Utah
so you would think
a better spot.
They'd get a better slot than that.
Nope.
Oregon's going to trounce Maryland?
Yeah. No, Utah, it's not a game you want to have on TV. It's a bad game. And at least it's still on main ESPN, so people can watch it. It's kind of supposed to be their better late-night game. But
that is an insult to BYU. I don't care how bad Utah I don't care how bad Utah is. That's an insult to BYU. A top 10 team is playing their rival that they haven't played in 2 years or whatever. It writes itself.
Yeah. On the road. Yeah. At a good environment. I'm with you. It's a bad time.
That's an insult to BYU. That's terrible. That is terrible. And yeah, I'm grumpy about the late night start. I hate them. But they're kicking that game to Pac-12 After Dark status.
Yeah.
Where we know no one's going to watch this game, even if it's good, and we're going to label it Pac-12 After Dark. That's terrible.
Let me see. Oh, you have plans. Oh, no, you don't. You're going to be able to go right. Jazz Spurs play at 3 o'clock. So that game will wrap, and you can get right there ready for Utah BYU. Life's good.
Hooray for me.
12 straight hours.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
What's next?
NFL weekend recap.
I don't even care anymore. I'm so bothered.
Browns stunned the Ravens. That's why I should never believe in any football team.
Why are you burying the lead? Fingernails took an L on a Hail Mary. Hail Mary from the commies to win the play of the year so far, for sure.
Well, the thing was, Caleb Williams was awful all game. Bad all game. Puts together what should have been a game-winning drive. Bears take the lead late. I thought the game was over because, man, I think Washington got the ball back with 25 seconds and had to go 75 yards. And, yeah, just horrendous defense from the Bears. And, the Hail Marys, they happen a couple of times a year, not always at the end of a game. But
well, that one bozo turning around looking at the crowd makes that a more epic play.
But I love this Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams story that's developing. That's great for the NFL. The NFL needs that. 2 young quarterbacks. They're going to be the faces of the league. And then you mix in guys like C.J. Stroud and you mix in guys like Jordan Love. The NFL's going to continue to be in a very good spot. Did you just say Bo Nix in my ear? He did win again.
Throw picks?
Yeah, throw picks.
To quote my friend Ben. Didn't what's his name get accused of running up the score too?
Yeah, the Panthers corner was yelling at Sean Payton on the field after the game for they converted a fake field goal.
Yeah, that's tough. You don't need to do that.
It's the pros, man.
And then
it's the pros. Wait, what point of the game? I didn't see.
It was late. It was late in the fourth.
game?
Yeah. Okay. But if you don't like it, play better, right?
Play better.
Tonight's game, Giants-Steelers. If you can't wait to watch the 2-5 Giants, which they always love putting on national television because everyone likes New York. Otherwise, there should be a World Series game tonight, I think, and then the Jazz are in action as well. How about the Jets, 2-6? They lost to the
Patriots.
One-win Patriots. Yeah.
How about your guy, Rodgers?
Crazy.
I think it's all Nate Hackett's fault still.
You're just blaming Nate.
Well, he's still in the building. That guy's toxic.
Got to get rid of him.
Yeah, he's got to go.
Well, yeah, a lot of...
Don't hand your franchise over to a player.
A lot of Zach Wilson apologists feeling good about themselves right now.
They should. I still think the Broncos, I know throw picks is rolling, but they should still play Zach Wilson just to see what they got.
Yeah.
He might be all pro, man.
Suddenly.
Nate Hackett was his coach.
Yeah. Horrendous. We saw what he did in Denver, so...
Yeah. You could make... No, I'm not going to do that right now. We're too far over. All right, Christian. We'll have more coming up next. Got Coach LaComb, top of the 11 o'clock hour. Stay tuned. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
1, 2, 3, move it.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Nominate the youth sports volunteer you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen on Thursdays to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals. Can we re-rack that sound clip real quick? We've got Tim LaComb at the top of the 11 o'clock hour. But this is a great sound clip.
Yep.
But I haven't heard this from Coach Witt in a long time. Let's reset that, talking about what's not going well.
You know, we seem to keep finding the same blueprint to lose. First of all, we're not scoring enough points. We're having a hard time rushing for 100 yards. We're having a hard time making first downs. Defensively, having a hard time stopping the run. They were well over 200. Seems to be a pattern of how we're not getting it done each week. And we as coaches got to be better, starting with me. And every issue that we have in the program is on my shoulders. And that's fine with me.
I like the accountability.
Of course.
I'll start out with that. I think head coaches that step out to the mic and throw everybody under the bus, and that doesn't mean you can't be critical of your team. I think
look,
there's
they just
a difference.
replaced their offensive coordinator. He can't come out and say it's somebody else's problem. Right. They just did it.
Exactly. So I do like that accountability, but I mean, in just the harshness of the directness, God, it doesn't feel like it's right, but is really telling.
Yeah.
And he was similar after the last loss, after TCU too, but where he just lays it out that this is, and doesn't spare the defense. We're talking about giving up runs, that's developing into a pattern.
Yeah.
I mean, that is as harsh. And again, I'm not saying throw under the busway because I don't think that's it. But that's as harsh as I've heard Coach Witt be in a really long time, at least back-to-back weeks. I mean, I guess he was harsh after TCU, but I mean, that is really on the nose for a coach. Little coach speak there.
No, Kyle Whittingham's a really good coach. I think that's something that I don't want to get lost in this 4-game shuffle for Utah, because there's a lot of reasons why Utah is where they are. And Kyle Whittingham certainly is a part of it.
Oh, his legacy is not in danger. I said this a couple of weeks ago. He's not in danger of being forgotten in the annals of history as a bad coach because he had one rough stretch near the end. There's been a dozen examples. We went through them of coaches that you don't think any differently of. And I'm not saying I guess Utah's in the middle of that kind of tailspin, but I don't think his legacy is on the line by any means. He didn't forget how to coach.
No, but Utah's inability to have consistent offensive production when they face adversity is something that Witt has to wear and will always have to wear, because that's been an issue for him long before
his
this
whole
season.
career as a head coach.
But Witt is a good coach, and he will come out and he will own this. Yeah. And he deserves to be able to own this. This isn't a guy who, should be talking about his job or anything like that. He's earned the ability to come out and speak frankly, not cover it up, not make excuses, because he's a good enough head coach. He's a future college football Hall of Famer, I think, who recognizes what the problem is. Now, I've said, I don't think he knows how to fix it. I don't think they know how to fix it this year, and you're going to have to go into next year with a whole new game plan. But
They should have gone into this game, though, Ben, with a whole new game plan. How does the new OC have the same game plan as the old OC?
Don't run the ball.
Let's put the game in the hands of the true freshman and apparently the backup quarterback, and let's let him go out and sling us to victory. That's not it. And I get it that Singer and Keithy are good, but that's not how Utah wins games.
It's never been how Utah wins games.
It's never been how Utah wins games, ever. So, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get that. I told you last week I thought they'd run the ball every play because that's what the head coach wants. And this guy's eager to please, but apparently not.
And clearly they don't have faith in the offensive line.
Maybe that's the issue. Could easily be.
That's a big part of it.
All right. Our buddy, the coach, Tim LaComb, is coming up next. We'll talk to him about what to expect tonight against the Mavs. Stay tuned. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'll tell you, Christian goes on vacation for a week, comes back still salty, just bossy.
I know.
A little angry.
Yeah.
It's like you just relaxed for a week, bro.
That didn't ease up anything?
Want to remind you to listen to the KSL Sports Zone every week throughout the Utah Hockey Club season for your chance to win tickets to go to the game this week on listen on Tuesday, October 29th, the DJ and PK. Tune in at 8:30. They're going to have an interview with Utah Hockey Club radio play-by-play voice Mike Folta. Listen for the keyword Canada, then be caller 12 to win. One lucky listener will win a pair of tickets to Utah Hockey Club versus the Calgary Flames at Delta Center on October 30th. Listen on Tuesday for your chance to win only on your home of the Utah Hockey Club. We are also your home, Ben, of the Utah Jazz.
Yep.
Joining the show now.
I'll sit this one out.
No, that was a mistake. Sorry, Ben. I didn't mean to sneaky insult you.
I don't have an ego about that. That's
He's
fine.
My co-host for Jazz Pre, Half, and Post. He's the coach, Coach Tim LaComb. What's going on, Coach?
Hello, my friends.
Jazz are 0-2. First game, I thought they played hard. Second game, it got away from them about 6 minutes into the game, and then they really never recovered. Just kept getting worse and worse. There's no reason to panic this year. We knew this was going to come for the Jazz, but where are they compared, I guess, to what you would have expected through two games?
Well, I was really impressed with game one. I think you look at things from, you mentioned the competitive angle, and I thought the Jazz competed really hard. I thought every guy that was in there was trying to win the game. And sometimes that's not always the case in the NBA. But I feel like everybody was a kind of one spirit, one mind, and played really hard. And it was a couple of plays here and there, that cost them that game. The other night it was one of those games where it was a combination of a bunch of new guys in the situation, and you saw more just communication things. When Buddy Hield gets left wide open, things aren't exactly being communicated out on the floor the way that that the Jazz typically do it. He got off to a great start, and the Jazz just could not find any offense. The offense was really spotty. It felt like their offense affected their not competitiveness, but their defense. Their willingness to be right on the edge like they were the night before, and that game definitely got away from them. And I told Jake, there's going to be more of those games, I think, this year where young guys trying to figure out how to stay in a game, and that's going to be part of the process too.
I love working with you for a lot of reasons, but one is you've been a coach. You've been there and you've coached at a high level, and it's fun to pick your brain. So I'm curious how you deal with certain situations, when you were a coach. And I'll throw this take by you because I thought what was concerning, and you mentioned Buddy Hield, and I told this to Ben earlier. Buddy Hield is in the league for one reason, and one reason only, and I guarantee he was on the scouting report and it said one thing under his name. It said shooter, really good shooter. And then to see, and you talk about communication, and feel free to elaborate, but I want to know what it's like as a coach to have sat your team down and said, don't leave this guy. He's a shooter. It's the only reason he's in the league. And somehow the guy is wide open time after time. How do you keep your sanity?
Well, in fairness to the Jazz on him, I think Buddy's kind of having a resurgence because he's playing with the best shooter of all time. And, watching the game, the energy that Steph brings to offense and what that does to the psyche of the defense. It's like the roadrunner running through offensive sets with no rhyme or reason, and then all of a sudden, he curls off a screen and he's open for a three. So part of Buddy's, night was made by Steph's reputation. But then, the hard part is when you allow that dude to then get going, make his first, make his second. And I think it was the third one. He was completely wide open and lost in transition. And when I talk about communication, much like the middle linebacker in football is kind of has the job of making the call and everybody echoes that. When you're in defensive transition, part of it is, the first part is to sprint back. You've got to be in the right locale. The second part of it is to identify personnel. And that is done by, literally guys that are back pointing and talking and helping the guys that are running to understand who's where. And so when I talk about communication, sometimes it's in a switch when a switch isn't communicated. And you saw that the other night with the Memphis game and some of those key possessions. Again, young guys are going to make mistakes. It's just part of it. It doesn't mean they're not good. Doesn't mean you make a blanket statement of guys in his freshman or rookie year and say that guy's not good. No, it's just he's young and he's dealing with it and he's struggling. All these guys are very talented. But that communication piece, Jake, that's when I talk about it, that's what I'm talking about.
I thought Keontae George came into the regular season in a really good place, had a fantastic preseason, shot the ball well, and then had a rough first night against Memphis and started out okay against Golden State, but his numbers are down even from last year, shooting 23% from the floor, 28% from the three-point line, only 60% from the free throw line. Again, extremely small sample size, but he just looks like he's pressing already, and I worry about that for him a little bit in his second year. Where are you on Keontae George?
Yeah, I do too. Because so much of this game's played between the ears, and, you can't help but either get momentum from what's going on or maybe get pulled back by what's going on. I thought Keontae had an incredible summer league. I thought that he really approached the summer in terms of just his development. You can see that he made great strides. And in the preseason, he was nails. It was 44% from three. And certainly assisted turnovers, was better. Again, I think the other night was a little bit of a mirage in that, he ended up with all the pressure. He ended up with a lot of shots late in the shot clock. 4 shots. And I think for Keontae, particularly early, almost be a little bit more selective, not like conservative about your shot selection, but certainly want to get shots that you can make consistently. And so, yeah, he's got to flip the script, for himself, just to believe that he can do it. But right now, he's, like you said, it's much like last year in that, the shots are going up, but they're not going in. And that's what's got to kind of change here for Keontae.
Where are you at on tonight's opponent, Dallas, with the addition of Klay Thompson?
Well, I think Dallas is always going to be, with Kyrie and Luka, just particularly in a 5-7 game series, it just makes life difficult. Talk about having to really be locked into 2 guys that are equally able in different ways to hurt you. You add Klay Thompson to the mix, and I think that Klay can benefit from a change of scenery. I do think that the ball movement, it's going to be different than he was used to because these 2 guys have it in their hands, but they do a great job of finding guys if the play calls for it. So I think they'll be ultra competitive. I think the young guy, their young crew, Derek Lively is a guy that I really like, and I thought he had a great year. So I think they've got some great young talent. then they've got those veterans, some new additions, and I think that they'll be squarely in the mix, kind of top part of the West, top 6, for sure they'll be in that, and I think that they'll be a very difficult out in the playoffs as usual.
Well, Keontae George has struggled some, even though I know Taylor Hendricks was 0 of 6 in his last game. I've been impressed that even when he hasn't shot well, he's still doing other things that help the team. I think Taylor has maybe been one of the greener flags or better signs that we've seen to the first 2 games.
I totally agree. In the case of Keontae, I think, his playmaking certainly improved, decision-making certainly improved. Now if he can just get a little jump from his shooting percentage, get a little momentum from that, then he can actually take off. Taylor Hendricks, in my mind, has been a major positive. His shots will fall and they won't. But I think if he can, and I've said this, if he can defend the way he's defending, and he did a great job. I went back and watched those possessions of him guarding Ja, and he certainly was not, out of plays. Screens, he did a great job of recovering, getting back in front. His length is such a great asset, and some of the stuff, some of the plays down the stretch he was involved in, and again, just being able to be more vocal and take over a play. When a screen comes guard to guard, you take command of it and make sure that there's communication, and you just don't allow 2 guys to go with one and allow, a great player to have a shot. So I think that's the thing with Taylor, but you've got to remember this kid would be a sophomore, a junior in college at this point. And, I think some of the things that everybody talked about, his upside, and starting to see some of that now.
How hard is it going to be for Lowry being the, I don't want to be mean here, but it was certainly by far the best offensive option, right? I mean, being by far the top of the game plan, top of the scout. How hard is that going to be for him?
Well, it's hard when you also say that, his strength is when he has just a little bit of window of space, doesn't even have to put the ball on the floor, and that's where he's at his best, and teams know that. And you're seeing it now. They're really being physical, and they're crowding him. He's not getting the number of looks. They're not opposed to switching out on him, in actions, so that he does not get that little window of space. And so he's working to try to, and Coach has talked about this, Coach Hardy, they're working on, an isolation package right now to try to get him a little bit more comfortable face up and maybe one dribble or 2. And I'll just say it, I think right now it's very clunky. It's not going great. And, sometimes a guy's strength is his strength, but I like that they're working on it. And, if it could become something like the Mavericks used back in the day with Nowitzki, where they just give it to him on the nail, really space the floor with shooters, maybe that's something that they can get to. But right now, it's not looking real natural and comfortable for Lowry beyond all that. I mean, that first night was exactly what you want from him. A guy gets 14 free throws, 15 shot attempts, and he had 35 points. That he just played, he played really, really good that first night.
A couple of surprises around the NBA. The Nuggets are winless through 2 games, and yeah, it's only 2 games, but they've been outscored by 20 points total. They just have not been competitive in a lot of these games. Sacramento is also winless in their first 2 games. I know some people are excited about what they were able to do. And then undefeated teams, Cleveland and Boston. Boston's certainly not a surprise. But the Lakers, also 3-0 in the Western Conference. What's caught your eye around the NBA in the first week of the season?
Well, J.J. Redick's definitely, changed the way the Lakers are playing. They're moving a lot more. It looks a little bit more contemporary now than it used to. It was kind of old school, and LeBron with the ball in his hands and trying to create an advantage, like much of the 80s and 90s were played. But he's got him moving around. I think that they did a great job of assembling, guys that can get in there and do some of that stuff. And J.J. Redick is he's got a unique mind for hoops. So that'll be interesting to watch. This definitely got my attention. And yeah, I'm a little surprised about the Nuggets, but it's, we've seen it. You have your meteoric rise, and everybody starts to kind of figure you out. You lose pieces due to free agency and guys going to get a little bit more. And your team's not exactly what it was. And you've got to kind of always re-identify. And I think that's the space they're in a little bit right now.
Okay. I'm going to go off the beaten path a little bit here. Last thing from me, Coach. I think all of us, like all us decent people, have a certain part of us that when somebody does something nice or gets something for us, like a gift of some sort, and it's not necessarily something we like, we still say, oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll use it or whatever, because there's a decency to it. I want to know how far that would go with you, Coach. And if you look at the statue that they unveiled of Dwayne Wade, it looks nothing like him. And when I say nothing like him, I mean like nothing like him. If you were standing there and the artist is right there and they rip the cover off that thing and you're like, oh, that's so bad, would you tell the artist like, oh, you did great, thanks, pal? Or would you like have them tear it down?
Well, knowing the art business the way I do, I don't know if you know, I was an art agent at one point in my life. But there would have been many checks and balance or checks, to see. You would not be surprised, put it that way. We actually did, when I say we, I worked for an artist, Dennis Smith, and Dennis did the art. He did the sculpture at Deer Valley of Stein Eriksen.
Okay.
And Stein was one of the funnest guys I'd ever met, but he was very serious about his appearance. And he was really, he had a nice head of hair, and he was into his hair. And so I think we had maybe 13 or 14 times where he came down to, check and approve. But to answer your question, like a normal human being, yeah, I would have turned and walked the other way. I would have been like, that ain't me. And when you get a statue of me, let me know, and I'll come back.
I don't know who that is, but that's not.
I have no idea.
Statue's great. I don't know who it is.
I mean, I don't know if they handed you the wrong picture, the wrong guy in the photo. I don't know if you had a Google mishap or whatever, but that is not me.
You know what? It makes
that
me.
Is the, oh, go ahead.
It makes me appreciate that John and Carl actually kind of look like John and Carl. They're not great. They're not perfect. Our guy, was it Brent Bustwell? Is that what we decided what his name was? Best Bustwell. At least it kind of looks like them.
Is that the same guy who does the NFL thing? I didn't think he did John and Carl, did he?
Oh, no, you're probably right.
We're talking about the NFL. That guy is amazing.
The guy who does the NFL Hall of Fame.
Yeah. That guy, Best Bustwell or whatever, that guy
that dude is incredible. I know Blair really well.
Blair Bustwell.
And if you have an opportunity to tour his studio, it's pretty amazing.
No, that guy, find that guy. That's my point. You know what I mean? I don't think that guy did John and Carl. That is a different person.
They are way better than the Dwayne Wade one. No one walks by and is like, oh, they got Mark Price and Jerry Rice up there.
Yeah, right. No. And I don't know. But would you be nice to the artist?
No. Well, I would. I mean, they tried, right? But it was like, I think I'd be a little more frustrated at the Heat, to be honest with you.
Right.
Yeah, now this thing is stuck here for the rest of whatever?
I mean, it literally looks like a creature from a Marvel.
Lloyd tweeted out, I'll give him credit. He tweeted out, it looks like Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah, right.
It really does.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough.
The artist formerly known as D. Wade.
Brian Chalice is who did John and Carl.
Yeah, it wasn't Bustwell.
It was not Bustwell. Okay,
no.
I'm mixing up my.
No, that guy is awesome.
Bust artists.
No, find that guy.
And I'm gonna get because I like Blair Buswell.
I know, but Ben and I thought he should change his name to
Bustwell.
Because
he makes good busts.
I got you. I couldn't figure out what you're doing. Now, see, I'm old. You're taking advantage of an old fella.
No, we're not. We should reset those jokes. Yeah,
it's an inside joke.
We shouldn't have too many inside jokes.
Shout out to Blair. He's an incredible artist and a great guy.
Such a cool tie to this community. Are you kidding? That's a great story. We're not mocking in the slightest. In fact, Dwayne should have hired him.
Yeah. If you want a great detail bust, he would be, or face, he would be your guy.
No, we were talking marketing, like Bustwell. It's
absolutely,
self-descriptive
100%.
right there. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like some actor taking the stage name Act Good.
Oscar.
Oscar
Hey,
Actwell.
don't we have a good kind? We have a good kind in the arena.
Mike. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
The good kind.
Man, that is brilliant. Oscar Actwell. I mean, that's a layup. You become famous overnight with that.
Yeah.
You could not act a lick, and people would still be like, "Well, his name's Oscar Actwell, so gotta hire." It'd be like drafting Bronny James. You don't even have to be good.
Yeah. The name does it all.
Yeah. Coach, you were the best. Thank you, and I'll see you tonight.
Hey, I will see you tonight. Sounds great, guys. Thank you.
See you, buddy. Oscar Actwell. That's brilliant.
Actwell.
That is brilliant. Get your brother on the horn. Tell him if there's a young actor, we'll give him that stage name for free.
Yeah, right. No Mike Douglas or
have him, if he hits it big, have him carve us in for, a couple of points.
Yeah, let's do it. 1% of
Oscar Actwell will get that guy a job.
1% of all your earnings.
Like Rip Torn probably couldn't act a lick, but you know what? They hired him over and over and over again because it's like, this guy's name is Rip Torn. Are you kidding me?
We got to have him. The guy who did the Dwayne Wade statue did do the Kobe statue outside of
That's bad too,
crypto,
right?
which is
Shocker.
also not great. Like the body is posed weird, like it looks awkward. But he did do the MJ statue at United Center, which is better.
Is it?
It is better, honestly. I do think one thing that they should get away from is trying to make these things look exactly like the players. Like, just go a little abstract. Just fine. It doesn't have to be exactly what their face looks like. You can have a little artistry in it and not even have their face. You know what I mean? Have their jersey, have their name on the back. There's different ways you can do it because once you butcher it, like they butchered it with Dwayne Wade. Again, I wrote the article at KSL Sports yesterday. If you haven't seen it, go check it out there. Once you butcher it, it becomes a whole talking point.
That's all people see.
Yeah.
Oh, there's some bad ones in multiple ways of Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah, we
there.
know Ronaldo has the terrible one in the airport that they've had to go back and fix, where he looked like Slimer from Ghostbusters. Like they had to go back and change it.
There's another one which is really funny where they embellish some things.
Yeah. So.
Cristiano, when he looked at that one, he's like,
"This is the one.
You nailed it.
You gave me 5 options. And I'm going to pick that one."
You absolutely hit it out of the park. Let's pose for a picture. Anybody? Let's do this thing.
It's going to be my new business card.
Poor Dwayne.
Yeah, it stinks.
Poor Dwayne.
Yep.
If you haven't seen it, you can find it online. It's pretty easy to find. But
again,
it's like,
KSLSports.com.
come on, man.
Yeah.
If this thing's around in 100 years, people are going to think that's me.
I think the problem is the major issue is they tried to make it his expressive, "This is my house" face. We remember Dwayne Wade saying that about playing in Miami. They tried to give him like this face where he's yelling. So he's got his beard, which is always going to translate really weird. And he's got like wrinkles around his eyes, and it just makes his face look huge, and the mouth is open. It's really bad. It's really bad. And it's hard.
It's like, what's his name? I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Who played Richie Valens in La Bamba. Lou Diamond Phillips.
Yeah.
I have no idea what Richie Valens looks like.
He looks like Lou Diamond Phillips.
He looks like Lou Diamond Phillips. That's exactly, And you know what? Lou Diamond Phillips is a handsome guy, so maybe Richie wouldn't object all that much. But Dwayne, when he's gone from this planet, heaven forbid, is not for a long time. 5 generations from now, they'd be like, look at Dwayne Wade.
I didn't know that's what he looked like. Cool. Dwayne Wade.
He looks like the guy from Boys in the Hood.
Yeah, he looks like the bad guy in The Mask is what a lot of people were saying.
I'd way rather have Lou Diamond Phillips.
Yeah. Just give me a handsome guy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's tough. His eyes look beady and small. It's just not. It's not great.
Stay tuned. More Jake and Ben. Who knew we were going to get into art critique with Coach LaComb?
I didn't know he had a history as an art dealer.
I didn't. He might have told me that along the way. I did not remember.
A lot of those guys are money laundering, so we should look into old Coach LaComb.
Well, Ben, first of all, let's not slander Coach LaComb. And
allegedly.
Second of all, even if he were doing that, what are you doing? Just selling him out right now?
I don't think
he
Coach
should punch
LaComb
you in the
is.
face next time he sees you.
I'm just saying we should investigate those people. We should investigate the guy who did this statue.
Hey, Lloyd, I thought your Lawrence Fishburne comparison was funny. Lloyd's in the other room.
Yeah.
All right, stay tuned. More Jake and Ben coming up straight ahead, 97.5 DKSL Sports Zone.
Who's got it better than us?
Your home for for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. Want to remind you about Taco Tuesday. Your chance to win lunch from the KSL Sports Zone at Cafe Rio. Listen every Tuesday for your chance to win a $20 Cafe Rio gift card. Learn more about Taco Tuesday and the great deals available every week at CafeRio.com. Ben, we don't need to dwell on this, but there is a story out there today. And, let me start here. Caitlin Clark has been compared to LeBron James in several ways.
Right.
I mean, their games don't mirror each other per se, but, the superstar status and all that. Well, breaking news. The Indiana Fever have fired their head coach, Christy Sides. So I want to know if now we're talking about Caitlin Clark, coach killer. 1 year for Christy.
How old is Caitlin Clark's oldest child? How quickly will they be sharing the court together?
Hilarious. I don't even know. I'd have to look it up.
She doesn't have kids. But, that was interesting. The turnaround was pretty remarkable. Like, they went from the worst team in the league to making the playoffs this year with Caitlin Clark. But I know there had been some issues with the head coach and what the identity of the team was and how she'd handle things. So
I wonder who Caitlin's going to hire next. I think they have the replacement. I think it was internal.
Okay. That's a good job because Caitlin Clark's going to be one of the better players in the WNBA, if not the best player in the WNBA, as soon as next season, but certainly very soon. She's going to be a difference maker. She already is. So, we'll keep an eye on that story.
Well, heaven help whoever's going to coach her because apparently it's going to be rough.
I don't pretend to know the contract statuses of the WNBA and how quickly that works. I do know there's been a lot of player movement with women going and playing in Las Vegas or going to New York to make those super teams. I'll be curious what happens when Caitlin Clark becomes a free agent.
Listen, somewhere on this planet, David Blatt said, they haven't even called me, but I'm passing on that job.
I don't want the job.
I don't want that Fever job. I've been down that road before.
Don't ask me to do it
So
again.
don't even ask me to do it. I'm not doing it. Coach killer. Caitlin Clark.
We talked a lot about...
Yeah, who's she repped by? Good call. I don't think she's clutch.
Yeah, I don't know. She could be, though.
Oh, man. If Adele's fingerprints are all over this. All right, who is Caitlin Clark's agent?
Okay, she's with Excel.
That's a nice land for them.
Yeah, big deal. I'm sure she makes a lot of money.
Clutch missed on that one.
We talked a lot about BYU to start the show and how they deserve all their flowers. You heard Kalani Sitake coming in. It's just things keep getting better. Every card BYU puts out seems to be an ace. There's just not holes on this team. And in fact, the one thing it seems like you can't do, which has been the fear about BYU, is how are they going to do against these running teams? What's going to happen when you have an R.J. Harvey or you have an Avery Johnson at Kansas State who can run? BYU's beaten those teams better than they've beaten anybody else. Doesn't seem like that's the way to beat BYU at all. Utah, on the other hand, this feels like a free fall. And I can't remember ever feeling like Utah's in a free fall because at the very least they've had a safety net that catches them at a high enough level. Now, the early years of the Pac-12, and you're going to remember this better than I can, Utah was severely out-talented still. The depth wasn't there, and they'd get an injury, and then it was just they were undersized, or they didn't have the bodies there. Right now, they are at a talent discrepancy, I think is part of it, but that's not the only reason why Utah's losing right now. There's big-time issues.
I actually don't think it is a talent discrepancy. I mean, we could nitpick positions, I suppose.
I mean, but a big one is quarterback. Utah right now is a talent deficiency at quarterback, which is the most important position.
If you want to take the first 3 years they were in the Pac-12, which is, I believe, the period of time that you're referring to, what was their most successful year out of those three?
Their first.
Now, who was their offensive coordinator their first year?
Was it Norm Chow?
It was Norm Chow.
Yeah.
Who was their quarterback that year?
What was the kid's name?
Well, it was, to start the year, a plucky young quarterback named Jordan Wynn.
Yeah, who was too small and got
lasted
hurt.
about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Enter transfer John Hayes.
Yeah, that's right.
Whose previous college stop stopped playing football, so he was a free agent.
We're closing
and
it
they
down.
signed him. I mean, I remember that spring ball. Norm Chow was trying to talk Chase Hansen into coming. Chase did come in to spring ball when he was still in high school, and they were kicking the tires on him at quarterback because
they didn't have anyone else.
They didn't have anybody else.
Yeah.
And so they go and sign John Hayes. Jordan Wynn gets hurt. What did Norm do, Ben?
He said they're too small. They got to get somebody else. And then they only ran the ball, right?
That's it. They threw the ball deep at the beginning of each half.
To set something up.
And then they handed it off to John White IV for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And actually, they switched from the spread to the pro style for the one season ever. And I think they should have stuck with that, but they didn't. And that's how they overcame it. They didn't have a quarterback, but they had a good enough running back. And listen, John White IV, of all the Utah running backs, was the least prototypical. And probably the most comparable to Mekhi Bernard, honestly.
Okay, I'd buy that.
He was not big.
He was a little bit smaller.
And he ran with passion. And the more you gave him the ball, like he would start out games kind of pedestrian, but as he got into his 18th, 19th, 20th carry in the fourth quarter, he just started running over teams.
Yeah.
And then that's how they won games.
Which wasn't early in the year. Wasn't Mekhi Bernard one of the better fourth quarter running backs in the country?
Yes.
He was playing really well.
100% when they were giving the ball 25 times.
Right.
But that's how they did it. And so I like your comparison. And I think it's apt. How did they solve the problem then? Well, they changed how they played.
Yeah.
And they didn't put the ball in the hands of John Hayes and say, go out and win us one, John. Lavelle Edwards, by the way, I was doing the show with Lavelle Edwards when he said that he thought that was the best coaching job Norm Chow has ever done. And Lavelle saw Norm do some fine work. And I think part of it was Norm was probably a little untouchable when it came to Coach Witt and Coach Witt's advice. And maybe, Norm took the Hawaii job right after, but maybe it's no coincidence that only lasted a year. I don't know. I don't know what's fair in that department and what's not. But I do know how they fixed it. And I do know how they won games that they shouldn't have won because they didn't have an offense.
Because the defense is playing well enough to win these games, is the truth.
Kind of.
They are. 17 points, you should win.
Yeah, but 17 against Houston is a lot different than 17 against TCU, and they held TCU. So I'm not entirely disagreeing with you. But giving up over 200 yards on the ground like that against Houston
far from
is
perfect.
Not great.
But if you were getting a D performance from Utah's offense, that's a bad letter to use. A letter grade, though. I'm using a letter grade. If you got a D level, D plus performance from Utah's offense, they would be 6-2. I think. I don't think that's crazy to stay.
I don't either. But can I say that the defense, real quick, like Ben, if you were getting C's on your English papers in high school, because
if that ever happened,
you were using way too many run-on sentences. It was like, Ben.
Yeah.
We got to fix the run-on sentences. We got to fix them, and you're going to be getting B's and A's, bro.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you have the run-on sentences thing all squared away, and now all of a sudden you're dangling every participle you possibly can and still getting C's. Utah, when they lose defensively, is when the other team throws it all over them. You can think of a number of examples. Or they're vulnerable to that, and then it gives away to other things. Very few games do they get run over. And so, the defense is still limiting the other team. But Utah's defense doesn't give up rushing yards like that. And and they're giving up rushing yards to teams that can't run the ball. You brought this up about Arizona.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's one thing for
it was like 9 yards a carry
to go all over you. But for Arizona to run you over?
Right.
Like that. Yeah, the defense is playing well enough to win, I suppose. But kind of weird that the defense is vulnerable where Utah's defenses are not really all that vulnerable.
Here is where the other part of that, though, I think factors in. And again, you'd really have to talk to some coaches and I think get a real breakdown on it. Utah traditionally has had enough offense and can win this time of possession and the turnover battle that they put other teams in situations where they can't run the ball. And I don't mean they're unable to. I mean, game situation doesn't allow you to run the ball because you're going to run out of clock, et cetera, et cetera. And because the offense has been so bad, the defense doesn't even have that in their back pocket. So I think that is a part of it where...
Okay, I'd listen to that. I don't know.
When I look back and say Utah's allowed 17 points, 13 points, 27 points, 23 points, they should have won 3 of 4 of those. And that's because the offense is so bad. But it is still an issue because the defense isn't generating those turnovers. That is an actual problem. Utah's got to be generating those types of turnovers. When they do, what happens? Even Brandon Rose can get into the end zone. And Brandon Rose didn't get into the end zone. Who got into the end zone on that drive when they had the short field?
Bernard, wasn't it?
Yeah, Mekhi Bernard. That's what the defense does need to be doing, and they are not doing that. And that's generally where your playmakers step in. But still, so much of this is in the offensive side of the ball for Utah. And even a below average offense would be good. But their output the last 5 weeks, and look, you can even go to Baylor, but let's take Baylor out of it because technically it was a non-conference game. In conference play, Utah has scored 10 points, 19 points, 7 points, and 14 points. They haven't broken 20 points once. The one time they did against a Big 12 opponent was 23 points against Baylor when they did have Cam Rising for the first half and they scored 3 touchdowns in the first quarter.
Not good, Bob.
It's one of the worst offenses I've ever seen.
Stay tuned. Wrapping up the show next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The wins just keep on coming for Kalani Sitake and the Cougars as BYU keeps their dream season alive.
It's magical. It's spiritual. How can you not be romantic about this game?
As the Cougars look to stay undefeated and make their bid to the college football playoffs.
Happy feet. Downfield. Caught. Broken tackle. Lassiter. Touchdown. Are you kidding me?
The KSL Sports Zone will be with the Cougars every step of the way. Your home for the best coverage of BYU football.
Hey, let's go.
Is on air, online, and on the KSL Sports app. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
1, 2, 3, move it.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Two amigos on the airwaves, talking sports. They got it made, Jake's and on soul. Loves his tie guy, Ben's got style with his scarf. Oh my.
Jake and Ben, this segment brought to you by Peach Stores and Windows. Amazing home transformations begin with Peach, or 5-star reviews are the norm. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255. Ben, thanks to you, Chest Trailer on Twitter, who sent me a picture of, or us a picture of Richie Valens.
Lou Diamond Phillips is better looking.
Better looking, and does not look like, I would say.
They got the hair right.
Yeah, but that's like the layup.
Oh yeah,
like
so much acting is just like, well, we did the hair similar.
Yeah,
like the rest is fine.
You couldn't have a bald guy play Richie Valens.
Can't play Richie Valens,
or at least not without a tube. You got to get the hair right.
Yeah.
But he doesn't look a whole lot like Lou Diamond Phillips, I would say.
He doesn't.
But if you're going to have, somebody more memorable as you than you, better make it somebody better.
Yeah, I hope they
better looking than me.
Cast Ryan Gosling as me.
Yeah.
In the movie. Great.
Like Johnny Cash, I don't know if people who are going to forget how he looks, but Joaquin Phoenix, not a bad looking guy.
Much better looking than
probably Johnny Cash.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Timothy Chalamet is playing Bob Dylan.
Yeah, Bob isn't the best looking guy I've ever seen.
No, and even as a younger kid, he was certainly more handsome, but at least Timothy Chalamet's teeth are straight. A lot of they're giving him a lot of positives, a lot of pluses. So.
Well, I had this theory for a long time, and it's actually leaned back the other way, I think, but your appearance actually didn't have that much to do with your marketability back in the day, because MTV wasn't a thing.
High def TV wasn't a thing.
All those sorts of things. So all of a sudden, Janis Joplin, who is traditionally not a gorgeous woman, or whatever, can make it big because it really didn't matter all that much. And then somewhere around the late 90s, it went where you don't have to have any talent at all. They'll just auto-tune you. You just have to look good in a music video.
Certainly. I'm sure, Elvis helped lay the groundwork for a lot of you can sell sex the way Elvis did, and certainly helped. But yes, it's a lot harder to make it as a average-looking person now.
Right.
It once was.
Yeah, agree. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you think that any of the Backstreet...
That's why we stick to radio.
That's
why radio's great.
Face for radio.
Yeah.
Do you think any of the Backstreet Boys could actually sing?
Oh, no. I mean, it's the joke of One Direction, and I know they just lost a former member, but Simon Cowell went and just picked 5 good-looking kids. So we can market this. The best-looking 5 kids that we can.
Yeah.
And we're going to try and catch the largest demographic of young women that we can, based on what these 5 kids' appearances are. And then one of them will have talent that'll break out. And one of them did, and it was Harry Styles. But that was it. That was the bet. They laid out 5 kids, and they said one of them's going to make it big, and we're going to ride him all the way. And they did. And it worked exactly right.
Richie Valens, gone too soon.
All right, P. La Bamba.
Stay tuned. Hans and Scotty G are coming up next.
Thanks, Christian.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.